This woman told police blood on her pajamas was from a goose bite. Decades later, they learned the blood was from her husband, and yesterday she was arrested for his murder. After midnight on August 10, 1987, Judy Jarvis called police. She said her husband was throwing things around and scaring her. Police got there half an hour later. Judith was standing outside and said she'd been there since she called. Police went inside and found her husband deceased on the floor naked. He'd been fatally shot in the back of the head, and the gun was resting on the top of the bed. Judith claimed she didn't kill her husband, and that she wasn't even in the home when he died. An autopsy found Carl's BAC to be 0.13%, and it was also determined that Carl's body had been moved after his death. It wasn't until 2020 that they tested the DNA on Judith's pajamas, and it was a match for Carl Jarvis. A forensic pathologist also said that the manner of death was definitely a homicide. On December 13th, 76-year-old Judith Jarvis was arrested and denied bail.
This is the last known footage of Emma Filipoff. She's a 26-year-old girl who disappeared almost a decade ago. On the 28th of November 2012, she is seen entering a 7-Eleven. Whilst in there, she purchases a prepaid telephone. She then paces around the store and weirdly hesitates before she leaves. You can see her cupping her hands to the glass, almost as if to check if she's being followed. That cell phone that she purchases from the 7-Eleven, she never activates it. When Emma eventually leaves the store, she gets into a taxi. She instructs the driver to actually take her to the airport. But when the driver inquires about the fare, Emma realizes she doesn't have the money to cover it, and so she gets out of the taxi. She was last seen by an acquaintance that night. He saw her around 7:30 acting strangely in front of the Empress Hotel. Now he went up to her and said, "Hey Emma, are you okay?" He was acting as if she was being followed. Now Emma told the acquaintance that she was fine, but he actually ended up calling the police. They questioned Emma for about 45 minutes, and when everything looked fine, they left. The next day, Emma's car was found in a parking lot. It had all her belongings in it. But Emma herself, she was gone. No one really knows what happened to Emma. When investigators started retracing her steps, they found this really strange footage from 5 days before she disappeared. In that footage, you can see her entering a store. She walks in and out of that store 6 times within just a couple of minutes. Again, she's acting as if she's being followed. Police did identify one man from all the footage they reviewed of Emma, however they weren't able to actually find the identity of that man, so it really didn't lead anywhere. Till today, Emma is still missing. For more 7 Sin crime stories, you can hit the plus.
This is a case of 19-year-old Ashley Marie Eifert and how she disappeared after meeting with a woman. Ashley was born on February 19th, 1983, and she lived in Harahan, Louisiana. Her family says that Ashley was a very joyful and loving girl to be around, and she was really close to her family. However, her mother Yvonne says that when Ashley was 16 to 17 years old, things started to change. This is when Ashley began dating a man named Joseph Louis Hill, also known as Joe Hill. Now, Ashley's family was not a fan of Joe. From the start, they knew something was off about him. And as Yvonne was talking to other people in the community, she learned that Joe was involved with drugs. They tried to warn her and they tried to stop it, but Ashley didn't want to listen. Ashley and Joe dated for a little over a year when Ashley ended up getting pregnant. She was excited about this. She wanted to be a mother. She was looking forward to giving birth, and her family was very accepting of this. They were willing to give Joe a second chance since now he was going to be a father. However, Joe told the family and Ashley that he didn't want to be a part of this. He didn't want to be a father and he didn't want to have a baby. Despite this, Ashley decided to keep the baby. Fast forward to Thursday, January 9th, 2003. At this point, Ashley is 19 years old and she is 7 months pregnant. But unfortunately, on this day, Ashley disappeared. She never made it home that day and her family wasn't able to get in touch with her. They started to get concerned, so they called all of Ashley's friends to see if anybody knew where she was, but no one did. Then they decided to call Joe because if Ashley was going to be anywhere, it was going to be at Joe's house. However, Joe told the family that he hadn't seen Ashley that day and he also hadn't spoken to her. He told the family that he was going to pray for Ashley and that she had flipped the script on him, which we're not really sure what he meant by that. After speaking to Joe and to Ashley's friends, the family decided to call the police and report Ashley as missing. It wouldn't be until 9 days later that the family would finally find a clue. This is when Yvonne, Ashley's mother, started driving around the area looking for clues. As she was driving around, she ended up passing by a house in the 4500 block of DeMont Lucen Street near Franklin Avenue. And when she drove through the street, she found Ashley's car. It was parked in front of someone's house, and Yvonne says that she didn't recognize this neighborhood or this house. So she pulled over and immediately walked up to the house and knocked on the door. That was when a woman named Nicole Celeste Johnson opened the door. Yvonne started asking this lady why her daughter's car was parked in front of her house and if she had seen her daughter. That's when the lady said, "Yes, I have seen your daughter. In fact, she was inside my house." Nicole explains to Yvonne that she had met Ashley at a doctor's office. Ashley was there for a prenatal visit, and Nicole was there because she had actually lost her baby a few weeks earlier. So Nicole was there doing her own checkup, and that's when she and Ashley started talking. Ashley told Nicole that she was 7 months pregnant, and this is when Nicole told her that if she wanted to, she could take some of her unused baby furniture. Ashley agreed. They exchanged contact information and agreed to meet up on Thursday, January 9th. When the day came around, Ashley arrived to Nicole's house and began looking through the furniture. Okay, go to part 2. This is part 2 on the case of 19-year-old Ashley Marie Eifert and how she vanished after meeting with a woman. So Ashley is at Nicole's house looking through the baby furniture, and this is when Nicole says that Ashley got on the phone and began arguing with someone. Now, she doesn't remember who this person was, but she assumed that it was her boyfriend, Joe. Apparently, Ashley had asked Joe to come by with his truck and help her pick up the furniture. But for some reason, Joe didn't want to come. So that's why they were arguing over the phone, and then Nicole says that Ashley started to walk out and go back to her car. She tried to get her car to start, but for some reason it wouldn't work. Then Ashley decided to get out of her car and walk across the street to a Shell gas station. And that was it. That was the last time that Nicole saw Ashley. Now, Yvonne listens to all of this and she's pretty confused. First of all, Ashley never told anyone about this meeting. She never told anyone that she had met this lady at the doctor's office and that this lady was going to give her baby furniture. It just seems odd that Ashley would keep this interaction to herself. Second of all, Ashley's car had been parked in front of Nicole's house for 9 days. How did Nicole not think that this was odd? A pregnant 19-year-old girl came to your house to pick up some furniture, left walking on foot to a gas station, and then just never came back to pick up her car. You would think that she would call the police and be concerned about this. But Nicole told Yvonne that she didn't even know Ashley was missing. Yes, she thought it was weird that her car was still there, and apparently she had called a tow trucking company to come get the car, but they just never showed up. Now, during these 9 days that Ashley had been missing, Nicole never once called her to check in. It's strange that she didn't call Ashley to ask her about her car, when she was going to come pick it up or anything like that. Yvonne listens to all of this and she immediately reports this to the police. However, when police went to go find Nicole to speak to her, she was gone. Have no idea where she is, and to this day in 2022, Nicole has still not been found. Police are asking Nicole to come forward and speak to them, but it's crazy that after 19 years, they haven't been able to find her. Now, besides thinking that Nicole might be involved, Ashley's mom, Yvonne, and her family thinks that maybe Joe is also involved. Ashley and Joe's relationship was not good. He was very controlling of her, and again, he didn't want to have this baby. Joe never once called the family to ask how Ashley's case was doing. He never asked for updates, nothing. And when police went to go look for him, he was also gone. Crazy how slow the police reacted. They had reacted as soon as Yvonne notified them about Nicole and about Joe. They probably would have found them. To this day, Nicole and Joe have never been found or questioned. Yvonne isn't sure if Nicole had something to do with her disappearance, if Joe had something to do with her disappearance, or if they worked together. But she definitely believes that either one of them was involved, and she believes that Ashley's disappearance was because of her baby. For some reason, the police are just acting very slowly on this case. Now, the family feels like they need to take things into their own hands, so they started a GoFundMe to raise funds to hire a PI. It has now been 19 years since Ashley was last seen.
This defense attorney was murdered by his client's ex-husband. On December 7th, 2022, 65-year-old Alan Teo went to the office of divorce attorney Doug Lewis and murdered him. Doug was actually representing Alan's soon-to-be ex-wife in their divorce battle. But on this day, Alan arrived to Doug's office and shot him. Then he poured gas all over the office and set it on fire. A witness saw Alan near the office with burn marks and he smelled like gasoline, so police were called and he was arrested. Alan allegedly did this because he was upset about the divorce and how much money he had to pay. Alan was charged with murder and first-degree arson and is being held at the Gwinnett County Jail in Georgia. Girl was murdered with a piano leg. On September 20th, 2004, 22-year-old Rebecca Gold was brutally murdered at her boyfriend's house after she dropped him off at work. On this morning, a man knocked on the door and asked if he could use their house phone. Rebecca let him come inside, and as he pretended to use the phone, she went back into the bedroom to go to sleep. He then picked up a piano leg, went into Rebecca's bedroom, and began striking her multiple times. Rebecca's body was then wrapped in a blanket. She was put in his truck and dropped off on the road in Arkansas. Her body was then found 7 days later, but investigators had a hard time finding any suspects. Many years later, in 2019, investigators created a Facebook group called Unsolved Murder of Rebecca Gold, and a 44-year-old man named William Miller joined the group. William was very active, constantly posting theories, but investigators didn't think too much of this since this was very normal behavior from people in these groups. But then, investigators realized that William was Rebecca's boyfriend's cousin. William was eventually taken into custody where he confessed to murdering Rebecca 16 years ago. William said that on September 2004, he knocked on his cousin's door knowing that Rebecca would let him in because they were related, and he murdered her. But there still is no motive. On November 2020, William was charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison.